Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 83, Scenery of Spring. Overcast clouds shrouded the moon, giving rise to flickers of ghostly apparitions. The scraping sound of blades being unsheathed was just like the sound of silk being ripped apart in the wind, the tearing of which spelled the pressing sense of danger of an imminent peril. There were 3 taps of the bamboo fan in the hall. Shenzhequan remained calm and composed as he held the pot to pour himself another cup of wine. "You're right." Shenzhequan picked up the wine cup. "We indeed have scores to settle tonight." Shi Hongxian lowered his arms and watched with cool detachment as the crowd swarmed towards the hall. He said, "As clever as you are, if you had been willing to comply obediently with the arrangements, you wouldn't have needed to suffer as much. The moment you enter the Chu capital, you're just like a caged bird in a pavilion, unmindful of the spreading blaze and danger ahead. You're really an unfortunate and a fortunate one. Back then, you fought the waves for a fighting chance at life, and for that, I toast you." As Shenzhequan spoke, he slowly poured the wine over the ground. "You and I both understand the principle that those trapped in prior predicaments are also the ones most unlikely to be obedient, because people who obey, 9 out of 10, will not hold out until heaven opens its eyes and lends them a hand. I fought against the battering of waves, and you are also fighting against the same. The lives of everyone in the world are worthless. Shenzhequan, I toast you too. You survived in spite of all the torture and torment back then, but tonight, you are going to fail miserably, like a boat capsizing in a drain, ha ha." Shi Hongxian laughed derisively, then abruptly turned indifferent. "Between you and me, only one may live. You've taken your bath and drank your wine." Shenzhequan tossed away the wine cup gently and rose to face the doors. He lifted his hand and grasped the hilt of Yang Shan Shui, his thumb pressing down against that white pearl as he laughed softly. "Do you really not intend to tell me Qi Huilian's whereabouts before you go on your way?" The flame in the courtyard abruptly intensified. Shi Hongxian turned his head for a look. The residence was already up in flames. He bellowed, "Don't bother contending with him. Whoever can take down his head, I'll reward said person with 200 taels of gold and silver." The doors and windows instantly broke apart as numerous shadows pounced like wolves. Shenzhequan's blade had already left its sheath. He took 2 steps forward, and blood went splattering along with the movement of his blade. The long blade that was Yang Shan Shui seemed to be forged from ice and cast of snow as its blade slit open men's throats. It was so fast that there was not a stain of blood on the edge of the blade, even as the blood droplets spattered over the window's paper. Yang Shan Shui was the same as Longli blade. They laid low in this Chu capital collecting dust, restrained by their sheaths to become the waist ornaments of refined young masters. But give them the chance to be drawn out of their sheaths and one would be able to catch a glimpse of the bloodthirsty savagery of the blades and their masters from those cold glints. The tongue of flames came licking in a fury, and in a blink of an eye, half of the Shi's residence was already engulfed in a sea of fire. Qiao Tianya leaped up the rooftop and dashed along the ridge to kick over the incoming killers with swift flying kicks before he hooked himself upside down and flipped atop the central hall. He stood on the roof and flashed Shenzhequan's gold-lacquered authority token. "The Jin Yue are investigating a case on imperial orders. The Shi clan assembled more than 100 gallant men from the martial fraternity for a private gathering right under the Son of Heaven's nose. Our investigations have unearthed the presence of criminal fugitives and outlaws still at large among them. Shi Hongxian's intention is no small matter. For this, he ought to be executed," Qiao Tianya said in a clear and loud voice. "This case pertains to the incident in which the Son of Heaven was placed in harm's way. Anyone caught involved will be taken into custody at the imperial prison. The Red Cavalry has already surrounded the Shi's residence. You people best surrender without a fight. Don't listen to his nonsense." Shi Hongxian shouted. "I'm the Son of Heaven's friend, one who has been through life and death with him. The Jin Yue harbor the intent to murder loyal ministers to cover up their crimes. Those who aid me tonight are all upright heroes. You will all follow me to the palace gates tomorrow morning to receive your rewards. That burning loft collapsed with a thunderous crash. Shi Hongxian did not retreat a single step amidst the waves of heat as he stared closely at the figure in the hall. That eunuch faction has only just been eradicated. His Majesty advocates freedom of speech, and what he hates the most are treacherous officials like Shen Zequan who want to abuse his power to deceive the masses and lord it over everyone. Gentlemen, the one who kills him will be a famous hero with his meritorious deeds recorded in history for ages to come. Qiao Tianya secretly spat. This eloquence of this fatty she was truly outstanding. If they could not gag that mouth of his, then he could even make black turned out to be white. Qiao Tianya promptly kept away the token and leaped down, where he drew his blade to face the enemy's head on. The sheen of blood stood out against the blaze in the courtyard. Up ahead, the scene was already in chaos, with shouts and cries everywhere as shopkeepers, bookkeepers, and servants ran haphazardly all around. The formation of red cavalry outside moved swiftly, having already blocked off all the gates. A strapping figure suddenly stood out from the hall. Shi Hongxian looked on indifferently. That body leaned back ramrod straight, and toppled over onto the stairs, the blood on its neck gushing forth incessantly. Shen Zequan withdrew his blade and returned it to his sheath, then strode over the corpse's arm and walked down one step at a time. Shi Hongxian suddenly burst out laughing. He laughed until he shook all over. He said, "I still can't compare to you. By using this reason to kill me, even His Majesty won't dare to blame or censure you." Shen Zequan inclined his head to survey that raging fire and said, "You aren't originally meant to die this early." Shi Hongxian looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. He was extraordinarily calm. Those merry laughters and furious curses had all become a thing of the past. He said, "Whether I die early or later, I'm still being played for the fool in your hands. It's too fucking much of an aggrievement. But it's of no loss to me to lose to you. Shen Zequan, I concede defeat. At the same time, I can't take it lying down. 100 forges to temper steel. Do you think you have already reached that stage? The reason I meet my end tonight is because I underestimated my enemy. However, there are plenty of people in this world who see you as a thorn in their side. They are all lined up in a queue waiting for you. You may kill one, then another one, but you will never be able to kill them all. How lamentable." He gazed silently at the night sky. "You and I were not born to be favored. Things that are readily available to the others are things that you and I have to fight for with our lives. The prejudice between children born of the principal wives and concubines is deeply rooted. How absurd is it for me to be clearly born of the principal wife, yet live a life worse than the sons born of concubines from the other clans. My life is worthless, and yours, even more so. You want to charge ahead, to fight, to seize. But who exactly will succeed or fail in the days to come?" Shi Hongxian spread his arms open, as if he was asking the heavens. At the same time, it was also as if he was asking Shen Zequan, "There is no end to strife. Who exactly will fail or succeed in the days to come? Will you be able to secure your victory once I'm gone? You kill the others and the others kill you. Ha ha." The sounds of Shi Hongxian's laughter were wild and unbridled. He suddenly crouched down to pull out the blade from the corpse on the ground and stumbled his way closer towards Shen Zequan. "I'm a man of this Shi clan. In this life, I've triumphed thrice over Shi Guan. I'm no less inferior to him. It's my parents who were blind. I placed my love in the wrong person and exhausted all my love and hatred. Shi Hongxian brandished the blade to slit his own throat. Hot blood spurted over Shen Zequan's body. The blade tumbled to the ground and he pulled at Shen Zequan's sleeve as he slid down to his knees along with the blade, slurring his words as he completed the last of his words with a forced smile, "Shall wait for you, on the path to the underworld." Shen Zequan watched Shi Hongxian fall at his feet. Warm blood trickled down his fingers. He stood in silence for a very long time against a backdrop of roaring fire, then he lifted his hand to shake off the droplets of blood. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The Shi residence was burned to ashes, and the Jin Jiu brought the remaining survivors in the Shi's residence into the imperial prison. Shenzequan had Shi Hongxuan's deeds, in which he amassed hired hands and resisted arrest, all recorded in a memorial which he submitted to Liege to make his report when he met with His Majesty personally. Liege was greatly shocked, but there was irrefutable evidence of Shi Hongxian gathering men in his estate, and the Jin Jiu had thoroughly checked the backgrounds of these people through the Ministry of Justice. This matter was handled so impeccably with no loose ends that even the imperial censors could find no fault with it. Wei Huigu was the most slick and sly. Upon learning of this, he promptly hinted to his disciples to first denounce Shi Hongxian as a treacherous villain who had poisoned the Son of Heaven's mind and led him astray, before decrying Shi Hongxian for putting His Majesty in harm's way, that the collapse of the Hua Pavilion was actually entirely staged by himself. The Wei clan really went all out to absolve themselves of blame. Such was the state of affairs when the tea had cooled after the company had left. Yet, even when Qiang brought men to search up and down the streets and alleys of the Chu capital and examine all entry and exit documents, they still never managed to find Qi Huilian and Ji Gang. They are definitely still in Chu capital. Shenzequan closed the work documents on the desk. He has the intention to use teacher to threaten me. If he had sent them out of Chu capital, it would only make it harder for him to control and manipulate them. Teacher is a scholar, but Shifu is a worthy opponent. There are only a few who could stand against him. Qiao Tianya said, I've already sent men to secretly search for them. The search would surely show up something. Shenzequan said nothing. Seeing Shenzequan deep in his own thoughts, Qiao Tianya was about to take his leave when Shenzequan called out to him, since there is no other business tonight, I'll make a trip to the Plum Blossom residence. There are many matters to be discussed. You should leave first and wait for me there. Ask Gu Jin who are those batch of people from Shangyun Villa that was sold to Shuizaiu's. Qiao Tianya uttered an acknowledgement and took his leave. When he stepped out of the door, he saw a few people resting in the courtyard. There were all seniors in the Jin Jiu of 4th rank and above. Among them, there were even a few whose ancestors had been bestowed with titles and properties, and who could don python robes and carry Xiaochuan blades. Qiang had led his men to rest on the other side. Although everyone was a Jin Jiu, Qiao Tianya could make out the subtle split into cliques among them. Shenzequan had advanced through the ranks too quickly within the last 6 months, which inevitably made others green with envy. Furthermore, with his close proximity to men in power on all sides, he had taken over the mantle of the northern judge, which could be considered to have established him as the top dog in the upper echelon of the Jin Jiu for real. The web of connections between the men was as convoluted as a labyrinth. Everyone, even if picked at random, was of privileged background and title. When the new replaced the old, it was customary for them to swap pointers with one another. It was only because Shenzequan had been too busy with his official duties that he had yet to draw close to them. But once the busy spring farming season had passed, everyone was bound to see each other one way or another during their subsequent missions. Qiao Tianya's heart sank slightly. He let down the curtain and left ahead of Shenzequan. Xiaoqi had yet to return from the military drill grounds at Mount Feng, and only Gu Jin was still at the Plum Blossom residence. Qiao Tianya drank half a cup of wine with him and made some inquiries into the matter of Shangyun Villa. A total of 16 people of similar ages. All of them were young boys and girls below the age of 20. Gu Jin and Qiao Tianya sat on the railing at the bottom of the veranda. The weather was fine today, with the sight of green buds and sprouts filling their visions. He said, as for their specific backgrounds and origins, I have already told Tao Sui to write them out and hand them over to the young master. Your master will be able to see it a little later. However, this is not an easy matter to investigate. These people are a random group, like a jumbled cluster of grass. There are no other similarities between them other than their ages. Doesn't this already illustrate the problem? Qiao Tianya picked up that little porcelain cup that was half the size of a typical cup and drank up the wine. He frowned as he savored the taste of it. The harder this batch of people is to investigate, the more important they are. This wine is pretty good, but why use it with such a cup? It's not even the size of my finger. Drinking holds you up from your work. If you reek of wine when the masters return later, you're bound to get scolded. Gu Jin did not dare to drink as liberally as he always did these few days after having received a dressing down from Xiao Qiye the last time. He simply sat for a moment. The patrols in the Plum Blossom residence were his responsibility, so he left just a short while later and let Qiao Tianya have fun by himself. Qiao Tianya sat alone on the veranda and drank his wine as he appreciated the sight of spring. There was no one around, and yet he enjoyed himself nonetheless. He remembered that his Guqin was still here, thus he thought of taking it out to play it. He rose to his feet and made a detour carrying the tray in hand, passing through branches that looked like green mist when he suddenly heard the sound of Guqin. Qiao Tianya followed the sound to search for it. He did not charge out hastily but instead brushed aside the green mist and took a peek out of the corner of his eyes. The long walkway was facing the natural sunlight, and sitting underneath was a brightly illuminated man who was sitting cross-legged. This man's entire head of black hair was adorned with an aged wooden hairpin. He was not wearing a crown, and he was wearing a sky-blue wide-sleeved robe with a Zaoan bag hanging from his waist. Qiao Tianya could not get a clear look at his face. All he could see was him idly plucking away at the strings. He would play a tune, then stop. A music score was laid out beside him. He was pondering it over when a gray-white kitten suddenly sprang onto his back and threaded its way around the sides of his neck to fish up locks of his hair with its paw to play with. This man carried the cat down and tucked it in his sleeve, his mind still on the Guqin. Qiao Tianya recognized the Guqin as the one he owned. He stepped forward slowly and gradually came to see this man's face as his angle shifted. The willow catkins of the 4th lunar month in spring drifted, while the green velvet buds all hung out to dry under the resplendent sunlight. This man was very fair. Unlike Shenzequan's icy fairness which looked as though he was immersed in frost, this man seemed more like a smooth white jade placed under the sunlight of spring. He did not have Shenzequan's cutting-edge sharpness, nor did he have Shenzequan's breathtaking allure. But he was in a class of his own, he was ethereal and unforgettable. Qiao Tianya used to be a young master of a family of court officials. In this moment, he recalled a poem his eldest sister-in-law had previously recited. Such is the mountain of rocks like jade, as is the forest of pines like jadeite. His unrivaled beauty, one of a kind, second to none, a man divine. Both of them had not even exchanged a single word with one another, and Qiao Tianya already knew who he was. Truly the epitome of a man of leisure. Qiao Tianya strode up the railings and set the tray down on the ground. No need to keep looking at the score for this tune. If you're keen to learn it, I can teach you. This man lifted his eyes to look at him. He laughed and said, I think of wine and the wine comes. I seek a tune and the tune appears. Friend, you're truly my lucky star. The springtime landscape in this residence is excellent. A pity no one appreciates it. It's fate that I get to encounter you while enjoying the sights of spring. And it's also fate that I get to listen to this melody. Bosom guests are hard to come by in this world. I'm no good at anything except playing the Guqin well. If you miss the opportunity that is me, then there will be no one else who is up to teaching you. Qiao Tianya poured wine for himself while standing. After drinking a cup, he tilted his chin at the man. So, do you want to learn it or not? Serving one's teacher is akin to serving one's father. This man put down the Guqin and dangled his jade pendant to tease the cat. He said in a composed and unhurried manner, I can acknowledge you as my teacher, but to be someone's teacher, you must first convince the person. Qiao Tianya stroked his slightly stub-bled chin and said, this Qiao Tianya never lie. Acknowledge me if you're willing to believe me. Else, forget it. This man loosened his grip on the jade pendant and looked at Qiao Tianya again. After a while, he smiled and said, "I believe you." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. By the time Xiao Qiye returned to the Plum Blossom residence, it was already dark. It was only when he dismounted that Chen Yang remembered and said as he led the horse, "Master, they said a few days ago that young Master Yao has returned. Although he avoided the banquet, he will call on us to pay us a visit. He's a hard one to track down. Who knows when his interest for a visit will come calling." Xiao Qiye took off his dusty and sweat-soaked outer robe and strode through the door to enter. "If he comes, tell the kitchen to prepare some light dishes for him. He has been with Secretariat Elder Hai long enough that he has grown accustomed to it and hardly consumes meat." Gu Jing came out to them, then he followed Xiao Qiye inside. Xiao Qiye stroked Meng, who was on his shoulder, and said, "Bring in some white meat and fresh water. It's tired out today too. Is my man here?" Gu Jin nodded and said, "He arrived a little less than an hour ago. He's currently handling official affairs in the study." Xiao Qiye asked, "Has he taken his meal?" Gu Jin replied, "No. His Excellency specially told the kitchen that he'd wait for the young master to return to have dinner together." Xiao Qiye looked at him as he turned his thumb ring around. Gu Jin got the hint and averted his gaze, not daring to stare at Xiao Qiye further. But Xiao Qiye's mood did indeed take a turn for the better. Before he entered the room, he took off his longly blade and tossed it to Gu Jin. "Give the sheath a wipe." Xiao Qiye pulled up the front of his clothes to take a sniff of the scent on his own body. "Send it in after a while. When it comes to sharpening the blade, I still ought to do it myself. Have someone keep an eye on the serving of dishes. There will be a lot going on tonight, but the water must be heated up enough. Where is Qiao Tianya? Have him take his master's python robe to the laundry room and scent it with incense before the morning court. That's all for now. You may go." Gu Jin acknowledged his command and withdrew, and Xiao Qiye pushed the door open. Shenzhequan had been inside listening for quite a while. He dipped the brush in ink without lifting his head and merely said, "How virtuous. The second young master is truly a man after my own heart." End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 84, Wealth. Xiao Qiye was conscious of the fact that he was reeking of sweat after having ran around the military drill grounds for the entire day, so he did not go around to the other side of the table but instead took his seat on this side. There were stacks of case files on the table, some of which were sealed with the Ministry of Justice's memorandum slip. From the time indicated on top, they were all from a very long time ago. "You're investigating old cases." Xiao Qiye put up one hand on the back of the chair and picked up the little bamboo fan that Shenzhequan had set on the table to fiddle with. "Just the Imperial Prisons cases alone took you half a month to investigate. Why are you even looking at the cases from the Ministry of Justice now? There was a blank period in the Imperial Prison records in the 4 years before the former emperor ascended to the throne." Shenzhequan looked at the files. At that time, Jilei had Pan Rugui as his backing, so it's unlikely that he would muck around to the point where he did not have a single assignment. However, there was not a single records left behind in the imperial prison, proving that many cases of that time could have been upheld to the standard judicial process of the 3 judicial offices joint trial. Jilei could only follow behind the Ministry of Justice, running odd jobs for them. What I mean is, Xiao Qiye exerted a little force on 2 of his fingers to use the fan to block Shenzhequan's view of the files and lifted his chin. "What are we looking into the old cases for? It was also here where we previously discussed the case in which Zongbo's troops were defeated." Shenzhequan set down the brush. "I spoke of befriending a distant state while attacking the one nearby. Do you still remember?" Xiao Qiye withdrew the fan and rose to his feet. He sidestepped the table and walked towards the inner side of the bookshelf. After a while, he emerged, carrying a scroll of a map. Shenzhen pushed away the documents on the table, and Xiao Qiye tossed out the scroll to spread it out on the table. It was an extremely detailed military topographic map. This is a treasure of mine that I stashed away for special occasions. Xiao Qiye used the fan to draw a circle around the location of the 6 prefectures of Zongbo. I naturally remember all that you've said. You're referring to the fact that someone used the Bianchi cavalry to knock out the 6 prefectures of Zongbo, which lies close to Chu capital. This is attacking a nearby state. Then, the Hua clan fell into decline and the Empress Dowager is now forced to marry third young Miss Hua to Kedong. This is befriending a distant state. If we put these two together, then we can see that it's to take away Liege's powers by subtle means, rendering it powerless so that Liege would be caught in a predicament where it has no support nearby and no assistance from afar. But such a plan took a long span of time and the variables are countless. If the other party wants to ensure that every wiki move he makes is without error, then he has to remain in a position where he can view the entire game. Shenzhen rose and slid his finger from Zongbo on the map to the Chu capital. He has to be here. The former emperor reigned for 8 years, which is too short to hatch a plot for the defeat of the Zongbo's troops. The time has to be pushed forward. Many things have happened during Emperor Guangqing's reign in the era of Yanji, and these incidents have more or less influenced the direction in which the situation moved. He has to be somewhere within. I'm thinking that I might be able to find some clues within these old cases. Xiao Qiye looked at the map and said, it's hard to get a full view of it just from the records alone. You have to find someone who was involved, or someone who knows the details. Propping himself up, Shenzhen looked aside at him and said, I don't have such a person. Xiao Qiye returned the fan to Shenzhen and said, on the contrary, I do have a candidate to recommend, but, what are you going to bribe me with? Shenzhen smiled and grasped the other end of the fan, but he did not take it away. Instead, he simply looked at him in this way and said, let me guess. The one you want to recommend to me is Yao Wenyu, right? He's a member of the Yao clan. He would indeed know better of the many incidents that had occurred during that period. What's more, he later went on to acknowledge Hai Lianji as his teacher. Hai Lianji has successively served in an official capacity in the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Personnel. He would, of course, know the details best. Xiao Qiye pulled the fan closer. Or, do you not care to meet him? I've long heard of his name. Shenzhen said. Whether he truly has the capabilities or is simply all form and no substance, I will know after meeting him. I do want to meet him, but when will he come? After today, I'll be tied down with work for the latter half of the month. Everyone else is queuing up to present their visitation cards to him so that they can meet him. Which of them has such prestige as His Excellency Shen? Xiao Qiye said with a smile. He is like the banished immortal who has fallen from heaven, not meant for me to use. So even if I rack my brain and try every means possible to play up to him, it'd be a futile effort. What Shenzhen said was the truth. He had indeed heard of Yao Wenyu, but if they were to pit this man against Xue Zaiozhuo, he would rather choose Xue Zaiozhuo. This was because what they were doing was secular work which involved too many sordid matters. So, even if one were to praise such an otherworldly divine being to the skies, he still did not felt inclined to woo said person over to their side. Scholars were basically and practically useless. Being an official was no less carefree than the courtesan prostituting herself in a brothel. Flattering those above you and trampling those under you, ingratiating yourself with another, taking a beating with a smile, each one of these acts was an art in itself. That Hai Lianji did not get Yao Wenyu to descend to this mundane world was already enough to get a glimpse of Yao Wenyu's temperament. Who could bear to hold an immortal down in the quagmire? Just let him remain free and happy as he always had been. Xiao Qiye thought differently though. However, he was in no hurry to voice it out and only said, I'm merely a casual acquaintance of his. He has friends all over the world, but those who can truly sit with him for a meaningful talk are few and far between. his courteous, but it was nothing but an impersonal exchange of pleasantries, just like you do. You can just meet each other briefly and make an impression on each other. Should a need arise in the future, you'd be able to make better acquaintances of each other. Hearing him put it this way, Shen Zequan did not turn it down further. Xiao Qiye would not recommend a person for no rhyme or reason. Shen Zequan made a mental note of it, planning to get Xiao Tianya to free up some time later to meet him first. Xiao Qiye had spoken with Shen Zequan as soon as he entered. It was extremely hot at the moment. The sweat he had worked up riding the horse on the way here had yet to dry up, and the sky outside had already gone dark. Seeing as his temples were still wet, Shen Zequan said, "Go take a bath and have a change of clothing. By the time you come out, you'll just be in time for dinner. We can discuss the other trivial matters later." "How virtuous!" Xiao Qiye lifted his leg to push aside the chair and suddenly bent over to hoist Shen Zequan over his shoulder again. Being considerate in words only is doing it halfway. "Let's bathe together. We get to save time, economize effort, and conserve water." Shen Zequan lowered his hand, wanting to correct the position of the brush that had been knocked askew. But Xiao Qiye had already taken a stride out to walk away. The hot water at the back was prepared very fast. Once the curtain was pulled down, it remained there for close to 4 hours. No one dared to interrupt the flow of firewood throughout. Chen Yang, being the most tactful, could read the situation best. Seeing as Xiao Qiye was about to take a bath, he instructed the kitchen to prepare the ingredients for the main dishes first, since there was no hurry to cook them as yet. Shen Zequan understood one thing, which was that he could starve anyone but not Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye could not and would not endure it the slightest. He would place all those days that Shen Zequan had owed him inside, demanding his repayment as he held him in his grip. He was full of vigor and energy, and whatever bit of capability Shen Zequan had simply could not be compared to Xiao Qiye's diligence and thirst. "I know it all." Xiao Qiye reached a hand out to rub Shen Zequan's right earlobe and clung close to Shen Zequan's ear to say, "There's no hurry to discuss Shi Hongxuan's matter tonight. You've been getting Ji Qingqing to scout around lately. Are you looking for Ji Gang Shifu? The Imperial Army is keeping guard at the gates on our end. If there is an anomaly with the comings and goings, I'll send someone to notify you." Shen Zequan reddened from the rubs. He propped his back against Xiao Qiye's arm and closed his eyes to catch his breath, exposing his fair neck before him. His entire chest was heaving. Other than this, Xiao Qiye fastened the earring for him. "This second young master will not talk about anything else tonight." Shen Zequan leaned forward and the waves built up, layer by layer. He had a feeling of having a full stomach, and on top of this, he tasted the pleasure and thrill of extreme abandon. It threw his consciousness into chaos, making him murmur vague words under his breath. So much so that upon hearing him, Xiao Qiye went numb all over. Between them, there was no putting away the wine cups after taking a tiny sip, there's only making merry to their heart's content. The undisguised desire was what they sought from the other. Both of them needed that headlong rush of when they held each other. Every worry they had could all be washed away into oblivion by this extremely harmonious and passionate coupling. They never whispered sweet nothings in the most intense moment, when the surge of lust and desire for love interweaved. Instead, they replaced them with kisses like unspoken agreement. The more passionate it was, the more they had to kiss. The water in the bathroom splashed all over the ground, and the steamy water vapor covered all remaining light from the window. The night was so deep, so quiet, that other than Shen Zequan's voice, Xiao Qiye could not hear anything else. He threw himself entirely into it, leaving nothing behind. By the time Xiao Qiye finally had his fair share, he had already lost all track of time. He brushed away Shen Zequan's thoroughly soaked hair and caressed Shen Zequan's wet cheeks. Shen Zequan lifted his fair neck high, hooked him closer, and licked his lips wet. Xiao Qiye had yet to pull out. He kissed Shen Zequan in this position and picked him up. Shenzequan let him kiss as he reached out his fingers to feel his way to the messy discharge. He rubbed it all on Xiao Qiye's body until he was utterly exhausted and drained. After they were done, Shenzequan ate a little porridge and got stuffed several more mouthfuls of steamed twisted rolls by Xiao Qiye. He had already changed into a clean inner garment. With Xiao Qiye's robe draped over him, he watched Xiao Qiye eat his meal. Xiao Qiye had an astonishing appetite lately. Shenzequan did not know what he was doing over at the military drill grounds at Mount Feng, but he keenly sensed that Xiao Qiye was not in a good mood today. Go sleep on the bed. Xiao Qiye lifted his head to glance at Shenzequan and said, "You'll catch a cold if you lie prone here." Shenzequan moved a fish over and grasped his chopsticks to pick out the fish bones. He was indeed tired to the point that he was almost dozing off, but he still took his time to say, "The repair and renovation of the military drill grounds have only just concluded, and there are enough funds to cover the costs. Looking at your expression though, is someone playing dirty tricks?" Xiao Qiye ate for a moment with a calm expression before he said, "I want to add the blunderbuss to the Imperial Army's arsenal. That's going to be tough." Shenzequan instantly knew the reason for his displeasure today. At present, the blunderbuss was only allocated to the 8 great training divisions. This item was valuable, and the Ministry of War would not give them out easily, much less assign it to Xiao Qiye. Xiao Qiye had long set his eyes on them. The 8 great training divisions had consigned this batch of bronze blunderbuss to their arsenal, where they had been sitting idly all this while. He had taken a few out to play with the last time, and it was from that time onwards that he started harboring this intent, but Xiao Qiye knew that this request of his would definitely hit a wall at the Ministry of War. Even Liege himself had no say in this matter. Because it was of such great significance, the power to decide lay firmly in the hands of the Grand Secretary of the Grand Secretariat Liege. Shenzequan thought for a moment. He held out the fish meat with his chopsticks to Xiao Qiye and said, "This thinking of yours in letting the Imperial Army test the waters in preparation for Liege's armored cavalry is too obvious. Considering the current situation in which they can't set you free, Liege will no doubt disagree." Xiao Qiye did not like to eat fish because he was too impatient to pick out the fish bones, but now that he tasted it, he found it to be still acceptable. He ate as much as Shenzequan fed him and only said when the chopsticks were set down, "Even if he doesn't agree, I'll still think of ways to get my hands on them. Liege has military craftsmen. As long as I get the blueprint in hand, they should be able to copy it, like drawing a tiger with a cat as a model. As long as they had the blueprint, everything else would be a breeze. It's just that this blueprint is not easy to get our hands on." Shenzequan rinsed his mouth from Xiao Qiye's hands and thought for a moment before he continued, "Liege keeps a pretty tight watch on this thing." But Xiao Qiye was determined to have it, and the reason he had to have this thing was something Shenzequan understood the best. Hua Xiongji was about to marry down to Qidong soon. Chu Capital's strategy of befriending a distant state while attacking the one nearby was already beginning to take shape. Liege must make corresponding adjustments as soon as possible. The Liege armored cavalry was not an invincible army. The reason it remained infallible was that its 2 successive commanders-in-chief were resourceful and adaptable to changing circumstances. If the Qi clan really fell out with Liege because of the marriage alliance, then other than considering strategies to deal with the Bianchi cavalry, Liege would also need to consider tactics to deal with the Qi clan's infantry. The Minister of War, Chen Zhen, and Kong Qiu come from the same hometown. With this layer of connection, he could also be considered an official under Liege. "This man has some friendly relations with my father. He wouldn't necessarily even do my eldest brother a favor in the past. And now that it's come to me," recalling the displeasure of yesterday, Xiao Qiye paused for a moment before he merely said, "There's got to be another way somehow." Once Xiao Qiye had finished his meal, Shenzequan extinguished the lamp. Both men lay on the bed, sharing a pillow. Shenzequan had a plan in his mind and spoke up, it'll be hard to go through Shenzhen. Since he is from the same hometown as Kong Chiu, then it means he's from Qidong. Between Qidong and Liege, he would already have an inherent bias towards one. Blunderbuss. The Jinyue might have the copy of the blueprint. Xiao Qiye pulled him over for an embrace. He closed his eyes and said, Shi Hongxian has only just died and those keys have already become a masterless gold mine. Everyone is watching you now. They are all dying to rip you apart to search for them. In addition, you just happen to incur your colleagues' jealousy and envy at present. You need not bother with this matter. Look here. This second young master has a way. Shenzhen did not answer. Instead, he smiled. Xiao Qiye slowly opened his eyes and said, those 2 million taels of silver will not enter Liege. I've already spoken to my eldest brother. The money will stop at Tse province. You can take out these silvers anytime you go back there. You can't even play for nuts with 4 million taels. This second young master wants to give you even more. They were clearly trapped in Chu capital, yet the way he said it was so genuine and sincere. Perhaps Xiao Qiye had told lies in the past, but he would not lie at this very moment. He was like a wolf pup collecting and hoarding up the stars, wanting to give it all to Shenzhen like that entire jewelry box of pearls and jade earrings. More often than not, he carried it out in action than voicing it out with words. On hearing this, Shenzhen suddenly looked back and said, actually, it's not just 4 million. Shi Hongxian had indeed kept his keys securely hidden away, but he's no sage. It would be inevitable for him to divulge a word or two here and there to people close to him after hearing some pillow talk. The clandestine love affair between his eldest sister-in-law and Shi Dan had gone on for quite some time. Both of them were actually tricking the secret out of him all along. 68 keys, 30 of which I know of. Meanwhile, Xiao Qiye, who was so poor that he was on the verge of selling his residences, was a little shamed into anger. He turned over to block off Shenzhen's mouth, biting him until Shenzhen gasped lightly for breath. Second young master Xiao, feeling the pain, Shenzhen was resentful. Your Xiao Qiye pinched his chin to stop him from voicing it out. Both men toppled into the bedding, trading peremptory kisses. The wind outside the room came and went, leisurely and carefree, sending the wind chimes under the eaves tinkling. Ding Tao just happened to be on the rooftop feeding that plump sparrow of his. He had kept the sparrow in his sleeves, taking it out from time to take a few looks at it. It was at this moment that he heard the sound of the pillow being pushed off inside the room. He held the sparrow, wanting to stretch his head out for a look but not daring to. Looking around, he saw his various Gurgr each acting dazed in their own respective ways. He gulped and said, I guess I'll tell you a story. My father previously wrote it in the book. There was this. Qiao Tianya and Gu Jing kept their voices down and said evenly, you shut up. End chapter.